With one party in control of both the executive and legislative branches of government, it would seem pretty easy to get an agenda through and adopt it. Is that a fair conclusion, Governor Whitman?
No, that's a mistake a lot of people make. The difficulty in having everybody from the same party, you have no one to play off, because you got to be a little careful about what you say about members of your own party and pushing them on an issue, because you want to keep those relationships going. Obviously, you're going to need them for the election. You're going to need them over the long term. I had that, and I found that I did some of the most difficult lifts I did with the Democrats.
How so? Give us an example. You had Republicans in control in both houses.
When we did auto insurance, Joe Doria was essential to getting that done. We had a couple of instances like that where, I mean, we're working with Republicans too, but it took a leadership in I didn't have all the Republicans, and I needed Democrat votes. So you need to keep working with both sides.
Well, how does a governor develop and then maintain a relationship with the legislature?
Well, you've got to listen. You've got to listen to them. I probably didn't do the best job of any governor, but you also have your chief of staff, your chief counsel, meeting with them constantly, finding out what's on their agenda. I used to have coffee hour once a week. Not many of them came, even though the bagels and donuts were free, but not many of them came, availed themselves of it. But just little things like that to try to maintain a relationship. When they want you to come to dedicate an event or something, you make sure they get some coverage. I mean, that's the point. You're there, but you're there for them.
Well, you pointed the finger at yourself. You didn't always listen, you said.
Well,
what did you learn from that? What do you mean?
Well, what happened, I think I maybe soured relationships a little bit at the very beginning, because right after I got elected, if you remember, I was elected on a pledge to reduce taxes by 30% over 3 years. And as soon as I had gotten elected, the press was all saying, well, what are you really going to do? And I said, cut taxes. And they said, no, what are you really going to do? I said, cut taxes. And then they went to the legislature, and they said, some of the legislative leaders I was hearing were saying, well, you know, campaigns are what they are, and you say things, and we're going to have to take another look. So I got this very strong feeling that, in fact, they were getting a little soft on me. And so I prepared. It was a year where President Clinton had retroactively raised the income tax. And so I got up and at my inaugural address said, and surprised everybody, because I hadn't told them it was coming, say, if he can retroactively raise taxes, I can retroactively cut taxes. And I was handed a bill that I then signed doing the first 5% tax cut. And of course the audience went wild and they loved it, and I boxed in the legislative leadership. I mean, there was nothing they could do, because the public was just, this is what they wanted, what I said I was going to do, and so we were able to get it done. But you know, they weren't happy that I'd gazumped them a little bit like that.
Some regrets on the part of the governor, perhaps.
But not for getting it done, because I honestly think that's the only way I was going to get it done.
Well, let me ask you about the job of the legislature. Certainly it is the people's business in their district, and that means bringing back benefits to their constituents. So how does a governor use that to one's advantage?
Well, you find out what are their most important projects. And if you've got something that you need to get done and they're giving you trouble, and this is a good project, I mean, you don't do something that's bad just to get the vote, but if it's a good project, you say, hey, we can move this forward a little faster. How about I'll do this, and if you do this for me?
A little trading back and forth.
There's a little trading. Oh yeah, there's trading going on all the time. It's not always the governor's doing it, but it's being done at the governor's behest, clearly, if a chief of staff is doing it or head of government relations.
Well, dare we bring up the possibility of a government shutdown? And then what happens? In New Jersey, of course, the Constitution requires the state to balance its budget by the beginning of a new fiscal year,
right.
July 1. But when the legislative leadership doesn't accomplish that, how does a governor deal with that crisis?
Well, it really is a huge problem, and you've got to deal with it ahead of time. I mean, you've got to sit down with the legislature and you've got to scrub the books. I mean, I used to go through line by line on the budget, because to me a budget document was a policy document. It's what you're really all about. And then you've just got to go back and say, okay, where can I cut? Where are the programs that I can cut? And then you go to the legislature and you say, hey, this is a place where I can cut, because don't forget the governor does have the line item veto, so that you can take numbers out of the budget, and it takes a 2/3 vote to override. So you have some leverage there working with the legislature, but you never want to get it to that kind of a crisis point. You want to find something, and very often when a legislature says, well, we're absolutely not going to do it, when leadership says it, it's because they've got something they really want to do that has nothing to do with the budget, and you want to find that out, and you want to see if it's something that you can do with them, that you could be comfortable doing with them, and say, okay, look, we can take care of this, but we've got to get a budget through to keep government open and working.
Well, Governor Whitman, it's always good to get your point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my pleasure.